Hey, how are you? It's nice to see you. Yeah, I'm speaking in English. Can you believe it? More English, but you probably like other students want to keep practicing your English, keep learning English, and you know because you follow me that listening to English is incredibly important to keep on improving. But at the same time, I don't want to talk about boring stuff because that doesn't get me any views and YouTube will punish me if I'm not trying to get views. And yeah, it doesn't really excite you that much. So I'm going to talk about something that you actually want to hear, but in English. Now, of course, if you need some help listening, I have some subtitles in English for this video. They're in this area, in this corner, I believe, of the video, and you can activate them to help you with your listening as you listen to me. You're welcome. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about the first Latin American country I ever visited. Because when I do lives on YouTube or Instagram, you guys always ask me, have I ever visited this country? Where have you been? What countries have you visited in Latin America? So it seems like you guys want to know more about my experiences in Latin America. So let's talk about it. The first country I ever visited in Latin America was Venezuela. Yeah, you're a little bit shocked. What, Venezuela? You mean the country where thousands and thousands of people are fleeing from the communist government and from hunger and from corruption and just from all sorts of crazy stuff? Yes, that Venezuela. But this wasn't the recent past. This was a long time ago. This was about, I would say, 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I think I was 14 years old when I first went to Latin America for the first time, and I went to Venezuela. Now, let me give you some more background information. Why Venezuela? Well, you see, my mother's cousin was getting married, and her husband had visited Venezuela before. And specifically, they had visited La Isla Margarita Island in Venezuela, and they absolutely loved it. So when they decided on a location for their wedding, they decided on Margarita Island in Venezuela. And this is quite common with lots of gringos. If you live in Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, Punta Cana, Cozumel, in any beach place in Latin America, you know that lots of gringos like to have beach weddings, and this is a huge income source for many Latinos who live in tourist cities or tourist places in Latin America. So, obviously, my mom's cousin, she invited my mother and my family to the wedding in Margarita Island. At this time, my mother had never been on a plane before. My father had been on a plane a few times. I had only been on a plane once before. So maybe if you think, oh, all gringos are rich and they just travel the world whenever they want, it's not really the case. My family, we never traveled that much when I was a kid. We didn't really start traveling until I was in high school. And even then, we only traveled maybe once a year for a vacation to Jamaica, Mexico, Cuba, wherever it was. And I think initially, if I remember correctly, my parents weren't too sure if they wanted to go, but because my grandparents, my aunties, they were all going to Margarita Island, we decided that we were going to go too. So we went. We went to Margarita Island. Now, this is my first time being in a third world country. Maybe you don't like that term, but that's the term that we commonly use here in Gringolandia when we refer to poor countries, underdeveloped countries. We call them third world countries. So this is the first time going to a third world country. I had been to the United States before, but the United States obviously isn't the third world. So it was definitely something different. And you probably want to know, what was my reaction the first time I ever went to Latin America? you might already know the resorts in Latin America are very nice because they're trying to impress the gringo tourists. So the resort was just like you may have already seen from going to a resort or from pictures you've seen on the internet. Yeah, they were just like the pictures, you know, hotel, all the employees with their uniforms, big smiles. Ooh, bienvenidos, welcome to the resort. Would you like a piña colada? Something like that. Now, so of the resort, my first reaction was, cool. There was unlimited alcohol. Now, this was, of course, in Venezuela, so I can't remember if it was legal for us to drink or not, but I think my parents, they allowed us to drink a few mojitos and piña coladas. Yeah, so, you know, that was nice. Unlimited alcohol. We call that in English an all-inclusive resort, when you pay for everything up front and then you get everything included when you go to the resort. So food was included in the price, drinks were included in the price, everything was included. It was an all-inclusive resort. Now, Margarita Island, I think Venezuelans love Margarita Island. At the same time, I don't think it's the most famous for its beaches. I think it's very famous for windsurfing, if I'm correct. The Venezuelans can tell me down below. So there's lots of windsurfers when we went to the beaches. But I was actually a little bit disappointed with the beach because where I'm from in Canada, there are no beaches, just lakes. We just have lakes. So I had never, actually this is the first time I ever saw a sea or an ocean, because where I live in Canada, kind of like Bolivia and Paraguay, there's no beaches, no ocean, no sea, there's nothing. So it was the first time I'd ever been to the sea or ocean. So for me, in my head, I had the typical Caribbean beach with crystal clear water, soft white sand. And when I went to the beach at the resort, I was a little bit disappointed because the water wasn't crystal clear and the sand wasn't perfectly white and soft. So I was a little bit disappointed. And when it came to the food at the resort, this was at the time where Chavismo was still kind of working in Venezuela, but at the same time you could kind of get that sense that this was a communist socialist country, because yeah, the food wasn't the highest quality at the resort. And usually at resorts in Latin America, the tourists get the best food of the country, whereas the regular people, they don't get the best quality food, unfortunately. But here, the food wasn't the best quality that we had ever tasted. Now, myself and of course my family, we always believe in, we want to know what's really happening in a place. So we took a few day trips to, I don't know what the town is called in Margarita Island, but the Venezuelans might know. But we took a trip, we went to the supermarket, the open air supermarket in the town. That was different. There's lots of bartering going on, and obviously in North America we never barter to buy things. And there was strange to be, I'll buy it for $20. And he would say, no, I'll accept the price of $30. So for my family, it was the first time we ever bartered to buy things at this open air market. At the same time, just looking at the town, it was very shocking for me as a young Canadian, because obviously in Canada and in most parts of the United States, it's incredibly developed. We've never seen a town where garbage isn't picked up every week by the town. We've never been to a place where there are stray dogs in the streets. I had never seen kids with no shirts and no shoes walking on the streets. It was the first time seeing this. So in a way, it was the first time seeing poverty face to face. Obviously, for Canadians, we've seen it on the television or in movies, but we'd never really seen it face to face. And driving from the resort to the town and looking at all of this was, yeah, a crazy experience for me. Crazy experience for me. And you might be asking me, so there's no stray dogs in Canada? Well, in Canada, usually what happens is, well, most people spay or neuter their pets, so it's less likely that they're going to keep on creating more and more dogs or cats. As well, if there is a stray dog in the town, for example, usually animal control will catch the animal and take them to an animal shelter. In the animal shelter, somebody can adopt the dog or the cat. I think if nobody adopts the dog or the cat, they'll usually put it down. They'll usually put it down. So yeah, I'd never really seen that before either. And of course, in Canada, in the towns and the cities, there's garbage removal. So every single week, somebody is getting rid of the garbage. But we would drive past the poor neighborhoods in this town in Venezuela, and yeah, nobody was dealing with the garbage. And the other thing too was roads inside of towns weren't paved. In Canada, all the towns, all the roads inside the town are paved. So this is the first time too seeing a town without paved roads. So all of this was very shocking to us, seeing it for the first time. And as a 14-year-old, it definitely opened my eyes to the rest of the world. I realized that the world wasn't just Canada. And if you've never traveled before, I think that's one thing I'll tell you. One benefit of traveling is you realize that the entire world doesn't revolve around your city, around your province, your state, around your country. There's a diverse world of cultures on this planet, and they're each going through their own problems. They each have their own peculiarities, their own benefits, their own drawbacks. Yeah, for me, it was definitely an interesting, crazy, and good experience for me. I think the last thing I can say about this, when I was leaving Venezuela in the airport, I saw they were selling Che Guevara and Hugo Chavez dolls. And if you don't already know, I studied political science in university. And I think it was that moment where I started to get interested in politics, because in Canada, obviously, they aren't selling dolls of the prime ministers, of the politicians here in Canada. So when I saw Che Guevara and Hugo Chavez dolls in the airport, I thought, wow, politics is really interesting. They do politics different in other countries. So I think at that moment was when I really got interested in politics. And so that is my first experience. That was my first experience in Latin America when I was 14 years old. So if you have any comments, tell me below. If you have some other questions about my experiences in Latin America, you can tell me below as well. Hopefully you learned some new vocabulary. Hopefully you improved your listening a little bit watching this video. And I hope to see you in another video in the future. Goodbye.